Hello everyone, this is Svetlana. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's been a while since the last time I made a video. Videos take quite a bit of time to make and I don't really have this time at all. However, the last month I was working on my recent class at Altenio Academy, and since I had all my equipment out and set up, I decided to try to start making videos again. Today I will be working with the new Altenio Built a Flower cut layer. This set has the outline stamp as well as layering ones. Using all of them, you can create this very beautiful cut layer orchid peak. For stamping, I will be using my Misty stamping tool, and I already have a panel of solar white cardstock placed into it. First, I will be stamping the outline image using Altenio Moss dye ink. And I have another panel of solar white cardstock, which I will be stamping on all the same. On that point, I wasn't sure if I would need this extra flower or not, but since stamping of this image requires some stamp aligning on each step, which of course is a bit time consuming, I prefer to have such just-in-case piece, which I may or may not use later, versus stamping all over again in case I do need an extra piece. Next, I'm moving on to stamping all the layers. This cut layer peak has two sets of layering stamps to make flowers. I will be stamping both of them in one take. Usually when I need to mount several stamps onto a Misty lid, I mount one stamp at a time. I am a very sloppy crafter, and no matter how careful I am, I always move a stamp that already is positioned while aligning another one. So for me it's always one mount at a time. Now, when I work with a new stamp set, the first things that I usually do, and I recommend you to do it too, is rub a stamp surface with an eraser. Here I'm using a regular, the cheapest eraser, nothing that you need to buy specially. Brand new stamps have a film or residue on their surface as a result of the manufacturing process. This film or residue prevents ink from sticking to a stamp surface as it should, and rubbing with an eraser removes this film. This process is also called seasoning or conditioning your stamps. There are several ways to season your stamps. I prefer this one with an eraser because it's very fast and easy to do, and you don't need to have any additional special supplies. I believe such thing as an eraser can be found in any household. Okay, so this bottom, the most solid layer, I'm stamping using parrot ink. And on this point, I'm already stamping the second piece. The next medium layer I will be stamping using the olive ink. This Built a Flower set has a very helpful layering guide, as well as several inspirational pictures. It all comes in the set as one piece. I just cut mine apart when was repackaging it. As I said, it has the layering guide, but this particular flower is very easy to align. I'm doing it without looking at the guide, and I'm not the best at aligning stamps, believe me. And for the last, the top layer, I'm using the Moss dye ink. Now, when I stamped all the flowers, I'm moving on to stamping the greenery part. And since my flowers are also green, to tell them apart from leaves, to stamp the last, I'm using Frayed Leaf, Forest Glades, and Evergreen inks. There are also two flower middles which I need to stamp to completely finish this cut layer branch. Since they're so tiny, I find it a bit painful to stamp those with Misty, so I'll do it in old school way using an acrylic block. So I'm placing both stamps onto the opposite sides of the block and then stamping them with the evergreen ink. I made a panel out of an Altenio parchment cardstock, and now I want to add some pure white spray splatters onto it. And of course, every time when I need my card base to lay flat, it doesn't, no matter how well I score it. But I have one trick to cope with this. I made a sticky roll using a piece of sticky tape. This is a microporous tape which I usually use to secure dies during die cutting. So I just took a piece of this tape, turned it inside out, so to speak, stuck two ends together, resulting with this piece that has an adhesive all over it. Now I'm placing it into my card base and it holds its flaps together. I will be making splatters using a brush, which I'm dipping into the spray bottle, and now I'm hitting it against my hand to make it splatter. Here I'm using a brush of a medium size. The smaller or bigger a brush is, the smaller or bigger will be splatters. Now let me show you different approaches in getting splatters that create different results. You can use this pipe thingy that is a part of a spray bottle and flick it above your project. It will create random splatters which are on a bigger side. If you spray directly with a spray, the way it's initially is meant to be used, you will get an almost full coverage with teeny tiny droplets. And as I already showed before, splattering with a brush gives smaller splatters. So depending on what I am going for, I use one or another splattering technique, or I can combine some of them together. Now, I put my cut base aside to let ink spray splatter dry, and also decut my stamped cut layer peaks using the matching die. Also here I have the third piece stamped in a lighter shade. This piece I actually stamped some time before for another card, but ended up never using it, and here it came in handy. Now I'm deciding on the design. I want the lighter cut layer branch to be located in front of the darker one, as that's how it would be in the real life. But I don't really like how these two stems are overlapping here. So I decided to cut a slit in this flower right along the petal edge. And now I'm inserting this stem into the slit. I cut apart the third peak that I made, and I'm using these parts to kind of fill up the design. When I decided onto the design, I'm securing all elements together using a piece of a press and seal. I'm basically pressing it onto all the cuts, turn them over, and apply adhesive on all parts which needs to be glued together. And then I'm applying adhesive onto the back side of the whole piece, turning it over and adhering onto the card base. And of course, this is the exact moment I realized that I had my card base placed upside down. This is a story of my life, really. I ruin many my projects like this. But in this case, at the second look, I realized that this cut layer branches cluster actually works upside down too. So I decided to leave it like this. Lastly, I white embossed a sentiment and added several snow crystals to finish off my card. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!